we have another one?
Yeah. That is working, so don't go to get another
Cool.
one. Thank you. We try now. I just
Nice.
something to switch back.
Excellent. Success. Cool. Right. I'm ready to go. I will some water first.
Are we recording?
Cool. Let's go live. If someone could post on the Discord the new one, the Mindscape one. Cool. So we're live? Alright. Hello people, and possibly other people who might also be here at some point. This is the first of hopefully a series of talks that has been somewhat delayed, hosted by CLR, aka the EA Hotel. This one hopefully won't get too badly interrupted by my voice giving out. It was delayed by quite a few days by being ill. I'm now unill enough that I should hopefully be able to get through this, but if not, we'll see. This is a guide to human dynamics, a bunch of different things. My general style with talks is like extremely information dense, gives them like huge amounts of information, and like the bits that they want, they can zoom in on. So if there's a thing you're like, oh, I wish I understood that bit better, please jump in. It'll be easier for me to give talk if people are like interactive and asking questions and stuff, because then I can get like a read of where people are at, and this helps direct the thing. I will be throwing lots and lots of bits in. Some of it will have background that not everyone will have. If it's a thing you really want to get, I can give it to you specifically. Cool. So, without further ado, let's go. Oh yeah, and people in chat, if someone could be on the YouTube live stream with their thing muted, and then like announce questions, that would be great. Cool, alright, so, let's start. Humans are most of the agency in the world. Most of the like attempting to steer towards things and to like make things happen is made of humans. So far. Probably not for super much, but so far this is good. But humans are like not great at things by default. We're kind of an untrained neural network with a few evolution heuristics. So we're also not great at humans by default. This talk is trying to give some useful bits and pieces to make humans better at humans. Because most humans are not like these fake humans who are in the stock footage, who are like very, very happy and everything is going fine all the time. So to start with, I'm going to do a few bits of like basic ontological foundations, like the kind of framework in which I'm thinking about all of this. It's easier to think if you have a framework, IMO, so here's a quick blast of my framework. Reality is well specified, like there is some fully specifiable thing that we're embedded within. Physics is a thing which has math about it rather than being undefinable. You are a brain plus body. The brain does like a lot of the like advanced computation and the like memory stuff. The body has a fair amount of extra bonus bits and pieces, but you can tell via brain lesions and other experiments, like if you put a certain like helmet on and it knocks a burst of like magnetism into your brain, then you can like knock out regions that reliably give you religious experiences. If you have lesions in certain areas, you have like fairly predictable, this thing goes wrong. So you kind of point to the brain is where your cognition happens. This is maybe obvious to some, but a useful foundation. Brain is a biological neural network. This thing up here is not doing exactly the same thing that an artificial neural network is. There's some very important differences, but the fundamental similarities of it being a learning system, a system which is like big blank slate-ish learning thing. There's evolution added a bunch more details to biology, but it's like essentially a giant simulator or function approximator. If you've read James's simulators post, basically it's kind of simulating a physical system, kind of mirroring the dynamics of the system that it's trained on, or a function approximator, which is mapping like function mapped inputs to outputs. Neural networks are kind of arbitrary function approximators that approximate more complex and more complex functions better the bigger they are and the more they train them, etc. So that's like basic bits and pieces. Cool, so let's talk about a bunch of human concepts, kind of in terms of information, like which bits of reality have access to which bits of reality. Predictive processing. This is a fun one. If you've read Scott Alexander Surfing Uncertainty, this will be familiar. If not, recommend this QR code, great post. Basically, the human brain is a prediction system. It tries to minimize prediction error. This is kind of the fundamental principle of the brain. You have sense data coming in. Your system tries to like guess what the sense data will be, and then if there are errors, if you're like surprised by the sense data, your system tries to adapt itself to make this less confusing. This means that you have a bunch of hard-baked priors, hence optical illusions like this, which if you look really closely at this, or not even that closely, if you look at this, you'll notice something kind of odd happens about there, where like suddenly it seems to invert somehow. This is because your system is like trying to minimize prediction error, and usually faces are the right way around. It's like kind of unusual that faces are inverted, so your top-down priors of like, your top-down priors are predicting that like faces are this way around, and what you experience is a synthesis between like the expectations that you have from all of your experience so far and the sense data that you have, that you're experiencing right now. Also relatedly, if you want to take actions, the kind of quick capture of how predictive processing says this works is that you predict that like if I want to move my arm up, I predict that my arm is up, and then the easiest way to minimize prediction error is for my arm, for all the like systems that control my muscles in my arm, to move my arm up to minimize the prediction error. You can kind of unify the two. There's a bunch more details of this. Active inference is really cool. There's a book called Active Inference, which is kind of spectacular, but the main takeaway from this is like human brains are like modeling the environment and a predictive system. Next one, suffering. So one model that seems to explain a bunch of what's going on with suffering is that it's basically unreconciled differences between models of the world. Like you have, cool. Unreconciled differences between models of the world, which is like, for example, you might think that, let's see them. So one of the good ones is like you're hungry, so you're like, your sense data is telling you, I'm really hungry, but evolution has baked in, it really wants people to not be super hungry because then they die, and evolution does not like this. So it's hard-baked a prior of like a bunch of the correlates of being hungry are not happening. So your system, when it's trying to resolve this prediction error, is like, oh dear, I like sure seem to keep getting sense data that I'm hungry, but I'm pretty sure I'm not hungry because hard-coded stuff, and then like it is bad. It like feels bad that these like distributions of how reality is are continually colliding in your brain. It's like you can't minimize the free energy very much because both of these are kind of rocks. They're like this solid pieces of like evidence world model. A bunch of Buddhism seems to be pointing towards like releasing the top-down priors that certain things are bad, or like like if you don't strongly predict you won't be in pain, then you can be in pain and basically not suffer, because you're not having the collision even if you have the pain signal. You just kind of like let it wash through you and notice the thing and it's okay. Cool. This applies in a bunch of interpersonal situations as well, which we will get to. Also, let's actually pause for a second. Audience interaction, good. Anyone have audience interactions to offer? Yes?
I want to ask you more about the suffering. Are you suggesting that suffering is caused when the prediction of our brain doesn't match the reality, or something else?
Where two different predictions within the brain systems do not match each other.
Okay.
So like there's one prediction formed by the part of you that's like, I'm going to like try and correctly model the sense data of I'm hungry. And one part of you has a different prior of like, I am have this hard-coded thing that I am definitely not like starving to
I think a good example of this is it okay if I okay?
Yep.
Is if you're in a state of suffering, let's say you're in really cold weather. Like if you then think about being warm and kind of have that desire to be warm, the difference between those two is where suffering happens. Yeah, would you talk about that?
That seems correct. Yeah. Cool. Anything else on this or previous bits?
So I'm wondering, like in the left example with the face that is upside, that is like inside. Like, would you say I should like suffer a tiny amount because what I'm seeing is like different what I'm predicting?
Yes, a very small amount. It's not high magnitude because your system doesn't raise this as very salient. Like it's kind of an odd thing happening, but it's like not an odd thing that your system is like trying to pay lots of attention to. This is why, I don't know, painful social dynamics are like way worse than like noticing that your book is in a different place than you thought it would be. Both of them are like prediction error, briefly, but like one of them is something that like you've got large amounts of saliency attention added to. Cool.
If I tried really hard and kept looking at that, could I see it the way it really is?
If you stared at things like this for so long that your brain built up a prior that was strong enough to raise to attention that faces might be inside out, yes. I think it would be much easier to do this with a physical object. If you had like a physical version of this and stared at it for a while, it would be like more trivial to like get your brain to get the right data. But with this, probably eventually you could question mark.
I've gotten to the point where there's only one like split second where I'm seeing it the wrong way.
Nice.
Like right, wrong, right.
Nice.
Sorry.
Cool. I didn't expect this to also be like a fun challenge, but this is a bonus. Cool. Alright, anything else? Next one? Cool, alright. So, next one is... Oh dear. Do we have clicking? Don't think we have clicking. Yep, got clicking. Nice. Okay, so, mutual modeling. So, all these people in this room have brains, they're modeling each other, this is neat. They're modeling themselves, this is consciousness, kind of, this is one of the important bits of consciousness. Parentheses, consciousness means about a billion things, because people all try and stick their favorite thing to the word consciousness. But the neat bit that this does is like, if you have a system that is modeling itself, this is recursion. Recursion is the basis of Turing completeness. Turing completeness means you kind of get this like giant explosion of now you can do kind of everything. If you can recurse on your own thoughts, you can do kind of everything. This is a bunch of how humans are neat. Sidetrack. Okay, so humans can model each other, they can model themselves, they can model each other incorrectly, etc. If they're modeling each other and they're like disagreeing about some part of reality, if they can sense each other's epistemic state, there'll be like tension between those. This is like uncomfy. Also, this can be informative. You can learn things from other people by their world model tracking things that your world model doesn't. You can introspect on your world model. You can introspect on your model of your world model. There's all sorts of neat things you can do with your brain. That's a quick one. Next one is cool. Conflict, NVC, control versus open. Okay, this should actually be like 5 slides, but I didn't have lots of time. Well, okay, I had lots of time. I didn't put enough time into preparing this, so I'll just do it with words. This is fun. Okay, so I think a bunch of what's going on with conflict is basically mutual prediction of suffering on engagement. Like, if two people expect that when they engage with each other, they will suffer, then they will try and take actions to prevent that suffering. This leads to a control versus opening loop, basically a control spiral, which I'll get to in a minute. But I've noticed that like what seems to happen pretty often is two people who are in this like, oh god, this is awful conflict. Once they make like well-grounded predictions that they will no longer suffer for engagement with each other, then they're like basically fine. It's just sometimes that's kind of complicated and requires understanding each other well enough that you can like navigate through the things that they're tracking and avoid things.
You want us to butt in and ask questions and
Yes, I very much do.
So then in that case, two people that don't know each other would never get to the point of conflict because
This is not true. They not know each other. So imagine there's two people, and one of them is traumatized about Red Tribe, and one of them is traumatized about Blue Tribe. They might not know each other personally, but they might form a fairly accurate prediction that they will suffer when they engage with the other political tribe. Just from knowing that they're
Okay, interesting. So if the people don't have any priors against each other, then they would never have conflict?
Kinda, but you could have a person who's just their prior is all humans are bad, and then they will be in conflict with humans by default.
Right, and everyone has some amount of prior that humans can hurt me.
Yeah.
But
and it's not doesn't have to be prior. You have to you can form that online. As you're talking to someone, you can until they've talked to each other, unless they have overall expectation that humans generate suffering, then they're probably not in conflict, but they can go into conflict pretty quickly. Oh, clarification on is prior the thorny bit here, or is this on this point, or?
It's related.
Cool. I'll finish this one first and get to you.
But you were saying that the conflict only happens if they have predictions that the other one will make them suffer.
Yes.
So, I feel like there's a sort of catch tangle here.
You form predictions about people all the time. If you're talking to someone, then you will start you have a probability distribution about how the person's interactions with you will go.
Okay, fair enough.
Cool.
Yeah, so if I were to predict that someone's mind would work exactly like mine,
Mm-hmm.
and then the person's completely different, doesn't really understand my points,
Yep.
then I would have prediction error, and the first few points would say that should lead to suffering.
Small amount at least.
Yeah, a small amount at least. And so in my experience, that is what causes a lot of conflict. That I sort of strongly expect someone's mind to obey to my expectations of how their mind should work, and then that's not the case. But that seems to be a little bit in conflict with the idea that conflict emerges out of expecting the engagement to go
Cool.
bad.
So it's not about expecting before the engagement that the engagement goes bad. It's about the current place that you are expects that the future distribution is bad.
So you predict that they'll behave a certain way, and then they don't, and then you start to predict, oh, this is going to go badly, because my predictions about how they'll behave are inaccurate.
Right.
So expectations in this sense is not expectations going in. It's at all points of time slice you have a set of expectations about the future. Cool.
So you say conflict happens when you have mutual prediction of suffering. The suffering is when you have two predictions that are in conflict. So
Yep.
when you're predicting that the other person will cause you suffering, you're predicting that you'll have a prediction error.
Yes, about a different thing. You can be predicting that you will have suffering because they'll move your stuff around and then you'll be sad. And then your prediction about whether they will move your stuff around cannot have suffering attached to it because you're just very confident that they will do this. But your object level interactions will cause prediction error on where your stuff is. And yeah.
What about... Sorry, go ahead.
And having the meta prediction isn't alleviating that suffering because you're predicting that you will have that, so that should help you resolve the prediction error problem you have.
It does mean you're not having meta suffering. So you can kind of this recurses in fun ways where you can predict that you won't have suffering, and then when you do, you're oh god, now I'm suffering about my suffering. Yeah. Yep.
So, yeah, one way of thinking about a prediction error when there's a conflict that creates two different models that create a prediction error.
Yep.
I wonder if it's I'll use this example, pronoun I, have a prediction of how the world is, and then I'm modeling the other person, and I'm seeing that my prediction of how the world is different than their prediction of how the world is, and that the contrast between those two creates suffering of
yeah, this can happen pretty easily. This actually brings us really neatly to NVC. Cool. So if you're talking with someone, you're kind of sharing some of your model of the world with them and them with you, and there's different ways of sharing it. Like, if you share your model and you're like, I don't know, say I'm talking to you and I'm like, the floor is made of lava, and you're like, no, it's not. Then like I will have inputted, if you take my thing that I said as Plex thinks the floor is made of lava, then you can entirely non-sufferingly hold the floor is not made of lava and Plex thinks the floor is made of lava. If you take what I say as the floor is made of lava, just like top level unquoted statement, then you will receive this and it will collide with your model that the floor is not made of lava, and this will be unhappy.
Right, yeah.
Yep. So there's like, depending on how the thing is said and received, it can, something that like kind of looks the same can actually be quite different. Of like, you either do or don't have the collision depending on whether you like take them as like flat on the same level or like nicely quoted.
Yeah.
Which is I think a bunch of what, it's not exactly what NVC does, but NVC does a pretty similar thing where you like try not to talk about the bits of the world that might crash into the bits of world model that they like would be ouch about. NVC is kind of variable scoping for programmers. It's handing them an informational object which just like doesn't make changes outside of some spheres that are relatively safe to make changes in. The bits that it lets you make changes about are your own internal state. You can just make claims of like, I am feeling sad, and they like generally that won't make them like freak out because they're like, yep, you have epistemic, like you have a better view of whether you're feeling sad than I do, and they will just like accept this for the most part, unless edge cases. Other things that you're kind of just allowed to do in NVC is you're allowed to state universal human needs. You're allowed to be like, humans have a need for not too much chaos. Like we need like order, things being like relatively orderly. That's like a general thing that like different people have more or less, but it's like kind of universal that if stuff is super chaotic, people have a bad time. You're allowed to state requests, which are like, cool, I would like you to do this thing, and you specify it well enough, and this is like organized such that it is a person asks for thing, not thing happens. A demand is quite different from a request. If you are like, you must clean the room, this is quite different from, I would like you to clean the room. This is like, this is a request to the person, and specify thing. And then the last one needs, did not revise this one at the right time. Anyone got the last piece of NVC? Observations, that's the one. Cool, okay, so the last one is observations, which is stuff that they can check. It's about the external world. They might initially have a different model of it, but it has to be observable such that you can both just look at that part of the world and be like, oh yeah, and then the prediction is resolved. So it's might generate a brief bit of suffering, but it's like clear. There's a clear path to resolving that suffering, so it's kind of fine. Cool. So NVC is nice to like avoid the like probability distribution collision thingamajig. And last on this list is control versus opening. So one thing can happen that's like super entangled with this lot is if one person is like, oh no, you caused me suffering, I'm going to try and make you to not cause suffering. Or like, I think that the world should be this shape, you need to change it to this shape. I'm going to control, I'm going to like make the shape of my cognition, bend your cognition to be a certain shape. And then the other person is like, oh no, you caused me suffering by trying to control me. You're not modeling what this is doing. I'm going to try and make you not be controlling me, so I'm going to control back. And then you have this basically a feedback cycle of like one person trying to control another who's trying to control they're both trying to avoid suffering in different ways, maybe because like one of them is like, the world needs to be this shape. Maybe they're like various different ways, but basically if you have two agentic systems which are trying to make the other system not hurt them, then they can end up spending kind of arbitrary bandwidth on this, and like the bandwidth that's spent on this means that they have a lot less ability to tell what's going on. Like often there's a third way. Often there's like, the option is not this person suffers or this person suffers. It's like they both notice what's going on for the other, and then now that they see each other, now they can do a third different thing that is not something that either of them was aware of, because at least one brain has a copy of both of the pieces of world models that are holding the things that were being cared for, and now that brain can, like, I don't know, reality is just very high dimensional. You can often find ways around what looks like a direct conflict. This is called opening. I have an unpublished draft called Control versus Opening, which is basically points at the dynamic across. It's a multi-scale thing that can happen inside a person. If you're doing emotional work, parts will often be like controlling variables, trying to control variables inside each other and burning resources. Individuals do this pretty often, and then also at larger scales, like different memeplexes or different groups of people will often be trying to like control into each other and blinding themselves to each other's worldviews, because that doesn't feel like the thing to do when they're trying to put the variable in the wrong place, which means that they can't see each other and can't fix the thing. Switching to opening is basically the process of stepping out of the conflict, looking at it from above, actually like opening to the other person's view. It's really counterintuitive, but if you can like genuinely hear the other person, it's usually, not always, but usually enough that now that you have a copy of what's going on for them, you can like debug the thing and then move forward. It helps a bunch if they're able to receive the thing that's like, oh, we found a third way, rather than being stuck in the thing, but like you can very often get out of conflicts by this. Cool. The QR code here is the cartoon guide to NVC, which has lots of fun diagrams, which people say are not good enough diagrams, blame Claude. And this one is Kai Satala's post on suffering. Alright, next one. Cool. So, let's step to a slightly different direction. What is a group of people? AKA lots of different words for ways to like put a Markov blanket around a bunch of people. Markov blanket is a kind of informational boundary thing that like partially separates and lets you abstract away the details inside one region. Maybe someone in the audience can give a better definition of that, but reasonable first pass. Cool, so what is a group of people? These things. It is, I claim, one reasonable thing you can do here is call it a shared partially isomorphic generative world model pattern. Like, a group of people will have like some similarity in some of the pattern that they're running. If you are part of a movement, then you will have like some pieces of memes that are in you which like mean that you're somewhat predictable along some dimensions. Also cultures, I don't know, languages, etc. This means you can kind of be abstracted to some extent. There's a fun Duncan Sabian post on like we and the problems with it, which means that people can like, rather than kind of having to model everyone in detail, they can abstract and be like, oh, those people have these approximate properties. This can go wrong in all sorts of fun ways. A lot of things have gone bad in the world when people have been like, that person is doing bad, and then modeled it as like, that entire group of person has wronged me, and then like fought the entire group of persons, and then the entire group is like, wow, that person, anyway, humans. Yep, and it also makes you somewhat predictable. Like, there is to some extent that stereotypes have some basis in reality, because you, absent the like intentionally biasing forces of like people trying to manipulate the narrative, there's like a reasonable correlation between the guesses about groups that people make and the groups, ish to some extent, but those are reasonable forces, so there are major failures in this direction. Cool, so let's look at some things that a group can be. It can be healthy or unhealthy. Like, some of these are like, great, people like, nice, I had a good time, I have an identity and friends, this is good. My startup destroyed the world, that looks good from their point of view. They can be very unhealthy. They can destroy people's lives, or take their stuff, or kill other people, or whatever. Or lots of bad things. They can be firmly or permeably boundaried. They can like either let people in and out easily, or have like a very like firm, like you have to do these special things before you can get in, and if we kick you out, you're gone. A bunch of variants there. You can be mystical or secular. You can have like a bunch of supernatural beliefs, or just be like very straight, like, okay, this is the shape of reality, and we're gonna science real hard or whatever. Groups tend to have something like gatekeeper memes, which are like, a memeplex is a set of like co-evolving patterns which are cohesive together. They like tend to correlate well with fitting in the same brain. If you believe in, I don't know, what's a decent example here? Anyone want to pick a memeplex? I can do one for something. Memeplex could be like any religion, movement, social. Rationalist, yeah, classic. Okay, cool. So rationalists like thinking probabilistically. We're like, that's a very central gatekeeper meme. We're like, nice. Things are not things are not 1 and 0. Things have that kind of stuff. So then another thing that goes well with this is prediction markets. We're like, well, we think in probability, and let's try and merge our probabilities into prediction markets. These are like very like compatible beliefs. If you didn't think probabilistically, you probably would have a lot less fun with prediction markets. So gatekeeper memes are approximately the like core-ish memes that tend to be like held by many members of a group, and those will often have a bunch of kind of say over whether other memes fit, because they're kind of deep in the person's system, and lots of people will have them, and if you have a belief that like strongly collides with a gatekeeper meme, then that belief will have a bad time. There's also lots of kind of like attempts to resolve these, and sometimes they shift, etc., but yep. And there's generally like diverse shapes of culture. Different cultures have different things that they're doing and trying to do, and I'm going to now say some things that I think are cool about cultures that you can have. And before I get to that, any questions on this pile of things?
What do you mean shared partial isomorphic generative world model patterns?
That's a very good question. Okay, so shared is lots of people in the group have the thing. Partially isomorphic means that the neural pattern that is trained into those people has similar structure. It's like the computations that pattern does are like related in some close way. Generative world model is your brain modeling the world. That's your like probability distribution over how things are and like where you're trying to put them, kinda. And patterns is neural patterns. Does this answer your question? And if not, please zoom in on any part that doesn't feel zoomed in on enough.
So it's gatekeeper memes kind of implying some shared like isomorphic patterns, because you're like
Yep.
sharing the meme.
Yeah, gatekeeper memes are some great examples of these. Yep.
So the consequence of partially isomorphic generative world model patterns is then increased compatibility and coordinatability between the people, and this is what leads to the group. This is the
Yep.
fundamental glue of the group.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And importantly, patterns like this that are self-compatible, that cooperate with themselves, are able to form groups. Patterns like this which fight themselves tend to like not work very well. A group of people who are running a pattern which defects on itself will be a pile of defection. A bunch of people running a pattern which cooperates with itself will be able to build up, and they can do things in the world.
Can you give examples of each of those?
Yeah. Okay, so what's decent? So harder to do the like defect ones because those tend to implode. Let's try like a criminal gang that decides to like rob a bank, and they rob a bank, and then like actually they were pretty defecty and they were just all in it for themselves, and then the moment they've robbed the bank they all like get in a shootout trying to get all of the money for themselves, and like whoops, well you managed to cooperate for a bit and then you blew up. Successful ones, the largest memeplexes in the world are kind of this. There is some challenge in pointing at these because like most memeplexes kind of get cancer. This is a fun one. Okay, cool. So academia, this is gonna be a fun one. The science as a whole and academia. Nice cooperative thing because they all want to like find knowledge and to build stuff and like understand the world. There's like some level of like just curiosity and understanding that like a person who wants to become a scientist tends to come in with. So a person who's like going into science will like be wanting to understand the world, and this is a very, very self-compatible pattern. A person, like, if you have two patterns and they both want to understand the world, that's like their core drive. Nice, they met each other and now they can swap bits and now they both understand the world better. This is sure, cheap win-win, wonderful. But you can totally, like, mean plexes get cancer, and cancer in the form of mean plexes is like patterns which are parasitic on the original pattern. So say you have a bunch of people who are just trying to like find knowledge and want to learn stuff, and they're like really, really into the science in the pure science form. And then they're all collaborating and cooperating, and they're playing Cooperate Bot. And then there's one person who's like, oh wow, all of these scientists are producing so much value. I can, people really want to produce these value. I can set myself up so that I apply for the grant and get the money, and they do all of the work, and I get to like basically coast by like making them work really hard on their thing. And that person like might not actually be running the curiosity pattern very hard anymore. They might be running the like money maxing pattern. They might be running the prestige maxing pattern. They might be running something else, or they might be running this to a lesser extent at least. So you have a very large thing, because cooperating on trying to understand the world is incredibly positive sum, but it's also a massive tempting attack surface for patterns which are trying to do things that are not that. Yep.
Would you say like EA and or rationality has a cancer?
Yeah, probably a bunch of them. Like, anything large is gonna be things are trying to be cancer on them. Like, how resistant they are to different cancers is its own thing. And some things are just like kind of symbiotic rather than actually cancerous. Some things are like, oh yeah, this one like works reasonably well together, and it's like not exactly the original core thing, but it's like relatively friendly with it. This is fine. Some things are somewhat more parasitic, etc., etc. Yep.
I would guess that some sort of like college dynamics are maybe an example of that, where you kind of like feed from the fact that EA has like so many people who are like attracted to the idea of like very intensely focusing on one particular worldview, or improving the world, or improving themselves, and so on. And like that is sort of like a resource, and if you're like a cult leader, you can draw from that resource.
Yep, it attracts a bunch of smart people who want to do good, and are like have resources and strength and idealism and thought cycles you can borrow for whatever else, if you're able to set yourself up as the kind of person who it looks to their patterns, to their gatekeeper memes, like you're the person that they should be deferring to. Cool. So, any more bits on these bits? Nice. Okay, so let's look at some good stuff now. Nice rationalist-ish group patterns. Learn is a fun one. So this one, learn is kinda like, people have a sometimes slanted conception of this, sometimes probably people in this room less, but like people who've just been, especially in the early parts of schooling, are like, learn is the thing where you copy knowledge from the brains of the teachers and the textbooks into your head. I think this is like a subset of what learning is. Learning is like absorbing information, or creating information, or like figuring things out, setting your system up so that it better reflects reality. Which we're gonna zoom in on the nature of knowledge a little bit. So who here has seen the meme of the like glowy blue person, where they're like, someone's like source and the person is like, I made it up? Okay, we got one person. Alright. Next time I will include this meme in the slide. It's a good meme. So, nature of knowledge. How is knowledge generated? From whence did the knowledge come? At some point, someone like thought it might be good and then checked. And the thought it might be good is like they ran their generative world model, which was already trained on a bunch of stuff, generated some like possible stuff, and then were like, ooh, that seems promising, and that seems promising is something neural network insights. like it's kind of like feeling which ones seem like they compress the world better and like make more sense and make like things that you're already thinking about easier to think about, and then you like check whether it's good. It turns out to be good, and then like, oh, that's a piece of knowledge that now other people can acquire. The model where like knowledge is this mystical thing that a special cast of people are able to generate, or like just kind of somehow appears and you get to absorb it, is wrong and way too common. Although I imagine you guys are fairly selected for having noticed this. Cool. Compression. So learning something is one neat insight from singular learning theory is like not just singular learning. There's a few other places this turns up, but like the small version of the generator. If you have like multiple ways to generate the data that you're seeing, if you can find a small like way of like representing that, that's much more likely to generalize out of distribution. So the brain exploits this a bunch, lots of things exploit this a bunch, and basically it feels really good when you can compress the world. If you have a bunch of confusing data, and then you suddenly have a click, and like, oh, all of these 7 different things make a bunch more sense if you like rotate it this way and like let it merge that way. So learning is a bunch of like, you can pick up other people's like things from their search, but you can also like try stuff and then see whether it like feels compressy and nice, and then check it against reality. Don't make the mistake of like, oh, this compresses reality nicely, and then not checking whether it matches reality. But if you do that, that's pretty good. Okay, cool. This goes to a slightly different way. If you're trying to like find out how a certain thing works, it will often have prerequisites. You'll like have a bunch of kind of patterns that you've already compressed. If you're like trying to figure out how, I don't know, some specific bit of maths works, there's going to be some other bits of maths that you need to know in order to be able to make sense of that. And it's kind of a like, do you have this piece and this piece? And then like, once you have these pieces together, if you like stare at them for a while, your brain like feels out the possibilities of how they fit together, and then like, oh, with that bit that they're pointing me at, click, nice, now I have another building block to build stuff with. This also works pretty nicely interpersonally, which I will get to in a minute. Yeah, so I'll get to right now. Intentional epistemic conversations. So if you're like trying to do, as a group, know better, more things stuff, there's kind of 3 approximate branches that I've tracked of types of conversations that are real good to have. One is transfer. One person has a pattern, one person doesn't. The person who has the pattern is like basically conveying as many bits to the other person. They might be building up like a whole pyramid of things before they can get to that point, but they're trying to get to something that the other person will now click and compress, and now they have a new piece of knowledge. There's a whole bunch of skills that lead to this, but this is one type of conversation. Actually, pausing for, yep.
Oh, I was not using my headset.
Cool, okay. And then co-build and explore. This is a nice one. If you have 2 people who both have parts of the puzzle, you're like trying to build a pyramid up here, but like one of you has this block and one of you has this block. Then you kind of like both load those into context. You're doing the mutual self-modeling thing from last time, so you both have kind of the other person's knowledge in your context field, and you can kind of do function calls to the stuff that they know. And then once you've got them both there, maybe together you can feel through and figure out and be like, oh, it's there, that bit, nice, you built a thing. And now you can like capture the tree, and now you turn it into a nice piece of knowledge that you can hand to other people. This one's real fun. And then, this one can also be fun. If you have the right approach, if you go into it with a like, I need to win, this is awful. If you go into this with a like, nice, I will win if I become stronger or they become stronger. I identify with truth itself. I do not identify with my previously held beliefs. I identify with like, not winning the argument, but winning by like finding the true thing. And if they have it, nice. This is great. This is what double crocs is about. This is what debates are about if you do them right. This is like 2 people have built 2 different pyramids that like look like they compress reality, but they'd have like an overlap that doesn't match, and they can't both be true from what you see so far. And you're like, ooh, what's the precise shape of the way that our like pyramids of knowledge mismatch? Let's look right at that. Let's like figure out what's going on there. Let's trace this like there's clearly something wrong in one of our world models, or we're just like misunderstanding what this is. Let's like trace the cracks, the kind of cracks in the like epistemics that is like shown by looking directly at the core of our disagreement, such that one of us gets to grow. Nice. This is this one. One thing that's worthwhile just being very explicit about here, there are way more concepts than words. Often what looks like a collision is just you mapped a different pattern to the same word, and this is unfortunate because this is just not enough words. This is partly also why I think jargon is like kinda mostly good, because then you have more token things to express the very, very complex nature of reality. Not like maximally good, but like when you're getting into the weeds, being able to differentiate in like a very fine grainedness between specific things that people who are deep in that field want to differentiate between is like actually critical. It does make it hard to get into. Cool, so that's kind of learning, or like epistemics, especially group flavored. Let's do the next one. Actually, before we do the next one, let's pause for a second. Audience, things, question mark. Audience, oh, cool, good.
Okay, you say, especially like co-build, explore, this can be fun and this is good for learning. And I guess I feel like these conversation modes are very unnatural and not likely to happen unbiased.
Yeah, cool. So I think there's something like a lowest common denominator thing, where by default conversation drifts into being the like normal social game of random walk through things that are vaguely associated with what you're talking about, which is like kind of fun sometimes, but like doesn't really make you get anywhere very fast. I think that I personally enjoy these a bunch more than random walk. I don't hate random walk. It can be good, especially if there's people who like have like really nice bits of random walk that just accidentally do transfer sometimes.
Sorry, is random walk a kind of epistemic conversation, or
That this is the not normal
different
social.
to epistemic conversation?
Yeah, the normal social conversation that people seem to do when people like when you read a book for autists that's like, here is how you interact with normal humans and have social conversations, they teach you something that's like, the game that you're playing is you are trying to pay attention to what the topic is about, and you say something related to that, especially something that's like interesting and or exciting.
Okay, so there's no epistemics.
Yeah, you're not really trying to go anywhere, you're just kind of wandering around and like sometimes learning things. And it can be fun, but like if you want to go somewhere, it's easier if you're trying to go there. Cool. Has the audience learnt the things? Would you like to ask questions to explore more? Are we good? Should we do next one?
I always want to ask for examples. If
Cool,
you
seems
want
good.
the audience to ask
Yes,
you questions,
audience
this is always
participation
gonna be
good.
my
Audience
question.
participation encouraged.
An example of a compression.
Okay, so... Ooh, what's a good one of these?
Addition is just more
Yeah.
compressed than just counting them twice.
Yeah, I'll go with a slightly different variant of this. Say that you have a model in your head of counting books, and you're like, I have a thing in my head that like is a little neural network circuit that counts how many books that I have. And then I have an entirely different set of like neural network things that counts, I don't know, how many cushions there are. And they're like two different things that are implementing a bunch of the same like logic. And then you like notice, oh wait, the thing that both of these are doing is kind of the same. No wait, it's basically exactly the same along lots of dimensions other than like image processing part at the front. Nice. Rather than having an entire circuit dedicated to counting books and an entire circuit dedicated to counting cushions, I can have one circuit dedicated to counting books and cushions, and then I have a bunch of free parameters that I can use to learn some other stuff, and the world feels nicer.
And this is always pretty much an unconscious process.
You can notice it happening sometimes, but like, and you can do things that intentionally cause it, but and someone else can like give you the pieces to do a compression, but yeah, it's not, you don't like manually rewire the circuits. Yep.
Yeah, I would say that whenever you sort of predict something pretty well by using only a few amounts of words, you're doing some compression. Like
Yep.
if you're, for example, saying to someone, oh, that person is like right wing on the political spectrum, and then the person can like much better predict how the right-wing person will act than otherwise. So then that is like some pretty small compression that gets you quite far.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of everything is some level of compression. Is
Yes.
that too?
No. Like the
Well,
intelligence, like intelligence is compression is like kind of close to true. I wouldn't go as far to say like this is definitely all of intelligence, but it's like a huge chunk of it. And I'm not sure that it wouldn't be right to say it's the whole thing. I haven't looked at that part of the world enough to compress it properly.
I noticed that at first you said that the benefit of compression is like being able to generalize better, and now you're like, oh, you have this like free circuits to use for something else.
Yeah, they're both benefits. You can generalize better, and also now you don't need to use much more parameters. Cool. Is that a question? Cool. Alright, next bit. Alright. So, growing is pretty good. Then you get stronger and more capable, and that's good. So humans naturally bootstrap. Like a human in a reasonable environment with like the right tools and stuff. We have 100 billion odd neurons and like a bunch of other stuff going on biologically. We're like an incredibly powerful supercomputer. It's kind of wild how limited we are given how like powerful our hardware is. But like there's a bunch of reasons for this. One of them is tangles. If you are going through life and you like end up accidentally training a pattern which massively undermines your ability to do things across a broad range of domains, you don't necessarily unlearn that pattern, and you can just like be carrying this baggage with you through the rest of your life, having like a constant minor to moderate penalty. These are resolvable. This is the subject of my next talk and Melissa's talk recently. But yeah, lots of people have kind of accumulated technical debt over a long time until the technical debt reaches the level where they like can't easily accumulate more of it without things breaking or doing like big annealing reset things. Environment. If you're in an environment that doesn't, it's like not conducive to good things, this is hard to do good things. It's partly why this place is great. It's good for being an environment. Foundations. Sometimes you like need some basic patterns in order to like unblock your other patterns and to like start being able to learn lots of stuff. This, I think for a lot of history, this was probably they were all major problems for a lot of history. But like before like a lot of the really effective truth-seeking and personal growth memes popped up, it was harder to truth-seek and grow personally. Alright, this is a more fun, specific, detailed one. So I think there's a thing where if you're doing well, then your system is like, nice, good job, blank slate learner. You have your neocortex is kind of a big, approximately blank slate learning thing. It's got about 10,000 cortical columns, which are little specific neural structures which can learn a very broad range of things. This is where a lot of your like really flexible and interesting cognition happens. But how like long a leash that's on depends on how you're doing. If you're like your body's failing you and you're like you don't feel socially safe and you're like generally having a very bad time, then your system will be like, whatever you're doing, blank slate learner, it's not working out so good. We're gonna fall back to the like hard-coded patterns that evolution set, which are also massively off distribution because the modern world is completely different from the environment of evolutionary adaptiveness. So when you fall back to like the nice safe evolution patterns, it's even harder to get out of. In the other way, if you're doing great, if you have like your fundamental needs as a being supported well, then your neocortex gets like longer leash, you're able to do more flexible cognition, things are going good. So there's a kind of somewhat bistable, like this dynamic system with like two approximate attractors of like doing good or not doing good, which is also bumped into by a lot of other stuff. Predictions move reality. So your predictions about yourself affect what your system steers towards. Other people's predictions about you affect where you steer yourself, or like end up getting steered. You can influence both of these a fair amount. You can influence yours by like intentionally like looking at yourself and where you want to go, and like thinking about what your values are. Personal mission statements are a great one of these, or like just like kind of figuring out what your values are and getting clarity on them. Other people's, the people around you will have expectations of like what's going on for you, and if you can kind of like not in a let's say if you can like if you can set stuff up so that the other people build you up and like have like the like healthy positive type of expectation of like, cool, this person is like actually pretty good and like trying to do this thing, and like this will pull your system towards this, but important to not do this via control. If you're like, other people should expect me to do good, therefore I will try and control the variable in their head of they expect me to do good, everything blows up horribly, don't do this. Instead, open. Like, actually try and understand why they... If someone has an expectation of you, which is harmful, if someone's like, this person is, like, if someone thinks that you're like, I don't know, lazy or incompetent or whatever other bad thing it is, if you can get curious about why that is and then debug that with them, maybe by actually making updates, or maybe by like giving them information that updates them, or maybe by noticing the thing and being like, oh yeah, I have to go on like this type of journey of personal growth in order to not have this thing that I don't want to have. This is really good. And then like they will also feel that you're trying to grow, you're trying to do this thing, and have the expectation that you're moving towards the good thing that you want to move towards, and this will help you move towards it. Cool. Actually, let's do another pause for questions. Any questions on growth? I see a smile. This is not a question, but it is a smile.
Is everyone getting called out?
Yes. Can you give an example of control versus opening?
Okay, you weren't central in my mind, but like there was some adjacency there. No, this is a thing that like people do in general a lot. Humans are bad at human. So examples.
Oh, I was just kidding.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this is reasonable.
You say naturally bootstrap.
Naturally what?
You say naturally bootstrap.
Oh yeah.
I'm confused.
Humans are like have lots of hardware and are very capable, and like absent things that stop you like unfolding and becoming like your system self-optimizing and removing itself from like removing the things that are blocking it. Sorry, I said too many words. Absent bad things, you become very capable.
We are naturally bootstrapped with 10 billion neurons and not
100 billion odd.
100 billion, which is impressive.
Yep. You're a supercomputer. Yeah, it's kind of wild that we're only vaguely able to do things. But like things block us a lot, and then we don't do things.
It should be naturally bootstrapped.
Maybe. I could believe that I'm wrong about English.
Or natural bootstrap, maybe.
Maybe like humans naturally bootstrap. Would that be grammatically reasonable?
Yeah.
Okay, I should add that word. Nice. Okay. Anything else? Cool. So build. Building stuff is good. This is how you move the world a bunch. These stuff are great for foundations, but like if you actually want to make the world better, then actions are also pretty good. Inner compass is nice. Basically, the inner compass in my ontology is you're like able to track what your whole system thinks is good. If you are following your inner compass, you'll be dramatically more motivated. You'll be dramatically more like able to point in good directions. You will feel much better because you're not constantly ignoring what your system thinks is a good idea. If you can't check inside yourself and see what feels good and which way seems the right way to go, recommend building the internal tech to be able to do this pretty reliably. If you go inside yourself and check, and you're like, wow, my whole system doesn't think I should be doing what I'm doing. This doesn't mean necessarily just stop, but it does mean probably some parts of your system are aware of different things. Like some part of you thinks plan is good, and some part of you doesn't, and you want to like build good information flows such that either your inner compass updates, or the part of you that thinks it's a good idea to do this updates, and you can like cohesively move in one direction or another. Some people seem to work best under inner compass managed by someone else. Some people don't. I was talking to someone was talking.
Managed by someone else.
Yeah, someone I was talking to recently was like, I would like a job because then someone will tell me what to do and that feels better. And I was like, huh, interesting. Yep, that is a coherent way to be set up. And some people just like want to figure out what to do and then do it. Make progress visible. This is pretty good as like a social group setup thing, where like if someone does a thing that's good by the group's values, it's great if other people can see this, and then that person gets positively reinforced. This means that the patterns which do things that are good by the group's values get upvoted by social recognition. This is the happy humans and more stuff. Direction before magnitude. So like magnitude, like how hard you're going in a direction does matter quite a lot, but like you want to get the direction right before you throw the magnitude on it, because if you don't have the direction right, then you might put lots and lots of effort and resources towards things that aren't even the right direction or are like missing key considerations. So direction, then magnitude. Keep experiments good. If you can do a thing which takes you half an hour and then you get information, or do a thing that takes you 3 days, this is much better than building like months worth of effort into a thing that you're not even sure whether it makes sense. On the other hand, it like sometimes is just worth pouring a lot of effort into something, but like you want to have a fairly high bar for being confident this is the right thing to do before you do that. Ideally, you'll want to do experiments first. Notice and resolve your bugs, then do things. So as you're trying to do things, it's pretty good if you can like notice, oh man, I have an aversion field around doing this thing. I'm gonna like notice this aversion field and then resolve it. Or I'm gonna build some system that makes this not happen, or I'm gonna like take some action that makes this be invalidated. It's also important, like, if you want to build things, it's important not to get entirely stuck in the meta trap. It's good to have like the ground truth signal of like, are the debugging attempts that you're making actually in the useful directions by continuing to do stuff even when you're mostly in a debugging phase? Because then you'll get to like know whether this change improved things, and you'll be able to like pick the bugs that actually help the most rather than like whatever happens to drift up. I probably have a lot more that I could say on this, but that's probably a fair amount of things to say. Does anyone else have any questions or things to add? Because I imagine people might have nice suggestions for this one. No. We have built all the things. Cool. Okay, then I will just go on to the last slide, which is this. Useful resources. This is the Linktree Models of Mind thing. Recommend resources here. This is the Discord for tomorrow's lecture. You people in person need this less, but it exists. Oh, you have a question.
What's tomorrow's lecture?
Tomorrow's lecture will be on psychotechnology, parts work, and the spirit of the seas, which is psychological healing and how to like become better, like cohered, be able to like understand yourself better, and like some kind of general principles, like somewhat universal principles of how to make information flow better within your system.
We have one question online. Is it one's inner compass the cause of suffering then?
Ooh, that's an odd question. Let me stare at that for a second. Yeah, so there is kind of a Buddhist perspective that like existing at all is suffering. I like don't super like that part of it. There is some suffering coming from trying to do things. Like if you want the world to be one shape and it's not that shape, there's like probably some irreducible, very small amount of like difference between the things, but this can be dropped to a very, very low level. If you're not having like meta sufferings and like like lots of attention on the like difference in a way that like is trying to control it and generating like control cycles inside you, this is pretty low. I think not following the inner compass is much more attached to suffering in my observations. If you're like out of tune with what actually feels good, where to go, then you're like, sure, I guess if you like had no preferences, then it didn't exist, then you wouldn't be suffering. But this is not a useful edge case, IMO. So like kinder if you want to get philosophical, but not in a useful way.
It's probably useful for someone who's feeling suffer.
Cool. Thanks for being my first subscriber. Cool. Any things? Yeah.
I was just trying to think of like counterexamples of about the thing of suffering comes from your expectations and how it differs from reality. If
Yep.
I got that right. So imagine that you eat hot pepper and then you know that it's going to be really hot.
Yep.
But then you still suffer. So yeah, what's going on there?
Expectations are not a single thing. You're not like cohesively entirely expecting it. A bunch of the neural structures that you have are hard-coded to predict that they won't have lots of like on-fire sensation, because on-fire sensation is generally correlated with serious damage to your flesh, and evolution doesn't want you to have serious damage to your flesh.
I think some of these predictions, like, I don't have an on-fire sensation in my mouth right now, they're kind of unconscious, right? It's not like you're biting into a pepper and you're like, I'm not going to have this fiery sensation in my mouth. Like, in your mind, your conscious brain might be like, I'm not going to have this, but your unconscious brain is putting out this like memo, I don't have this, and it's like your unconscious brain does this actually for the function of creating suffering, right?
Yes. Yep.
Does that make sense?
I'll add an extra bit that despite the fact that on some level you receive a bunch of suffering from spicy peppers, people keep eating spicy peppers. The conscious mind, in fact, doesn't get negatively reinforced strongly for eating spicy peppers because it is expecting it. So your top-down models, the ones that are like kind of big picture steering the show, keep causing you to eat spicy peppers because that part of the system doesn't suffer.
I think most people after terrible pepper experience aren't going to eat a super terrible.
If they have a
spicy
sufficiently intense pepper that the suffering reaches all the way to their top-level models, this is true. If it's a mild enough pepper that their top-level models are like, yep, that was predicted within distribution, then they will more generally-ish. There's probably details, but like, yeah. Cool. Any last questions from anyone? Or comments or anything else?
How did you get so cool and smart?
I read lots of things and then thought about them a lot and talked to people sometimes.
That's not an answer.
It's the one I've got. Yeah, I only have more trolling answers than that. Cool. Alright, let's wrap up the stream.